Today I'm going to talk about a strange chapter in damned history. Not of this earth. Released in 1996. It has a very strange history. It doesn't really sound like any other Damned album before it or after it, because it's not really a Damned album. The story goes back to 1994, when this whole thing started out. The band had been broken up for a couple of years. Since 1990, after finishing a couple farewell tours, did a couple farewell tours in 1989 and 1990. So anyway, Rat was working with a guy named Alan Lee Shaw. At the same time, Dave had gone off with Bryn and a guitar player from, I can't believe I can't think of his name. I did this twice. Whatever. The guys who were on the Phantasmagoria album, that lineup, everyone but Rat went on to Dave Vanian's Phantom Chords. Captain by then was still doing his solo stuff. I went back to doing his solo stuff after the farewell tours. And yeah, Rat was working with this guy Alan Lee Shaw, who was a punk rock guy from back in the 70s scene. He was in a few bands that only released singles, but he was like sort of a known guy on the scene. And he had written some songs, and he had put in a band together which featured Rat, Moose from New Model Army, and Chris Dollimore from The Godfathers. And they got the idea that if they got Dave to sing on the album, they were making an album, and they thought if they could get Dave to sing on it, they could release it as a Damned album. Now, Rat gets songwriting credit on the album, on every song, but to me it just feels like that was kind of an after the fact deal he worked out with Alan Lee Shaw, because that's sort of a Rat thing to do. And yeah, so they got Dave. At first he wasn't into it, and I think he agreed to do it as long as the album was only released in Japan, where they had been offered a recording contract to do an album by Toshiba, which was the company that makes like appliances and stereos and shit. So they got working on this album. Most of it, I guess, was already recorded, from what I understand. And then later, when they were done, it didn't really sound quite Damned enough, so they added some keyboard parts to try to get it to sound a little bit more like the Damned. Doesn't sound like the Damned at all. But it got held up for a while. I guess Dave claims there was a problem with money. He wasn't getting money from it. But while they're waiting for it to come out, they started playing shows. They went on tour, and that will come into play later. But the album itself finally came out in 1996. What the fuck you doing? I know you're there. What do you think I'm fucking retarded? Fuck you. Alright, so anyway. Sorry about that. Oh god, I hate people that have been thrown off. This is the second time I started it, because when I was coming up here doing this, someone was this guy, they have these people on here that are like security guards. They're called ambassadors. And he's like, what are you recording? I'm like, just some stuff. People don't understand the law. They think like if you're out here filming, you need to get everybody's permission on the street. You don't need to get anyone's permission. There's no expectation of privacy in the public at all. You can fucking walk right up to cops, film them. That's why it's funny when I get homeless people spurging out about it. And the thing, it's narcissism. Like, yeah, I'm out here to fucking get you. You know what I mean? Retarded. Alright, I'm going to try to collect myself and get back together with it. So anyway, this thing comes out, and they end up calling it Not of This Earth. It doesn't sound like anything they did before or since, because they're not damn songs. They're Alan Lee Shaw songs. And they're cool. It's pretty good. It kind of all sounds the same a little bit, like there's a lot of derivative kind of stuff on it. I don't know what kind of style you'd even call it. It's not like punk. It's not the goth stuff they did. Well, because these songs are written completely disconnected from the Damned. Like if they wrote them knowing it was going to be a Damned album, maybe they would have did something a little different stylistically. But I guess you just call it hard rock. Almost something like you'd see like a garage band playing at a bar or something. It's cool. Like there's some good stuff on it. The single was a song called Testify. And to me, a lot of it just sounds the same. But anyway, yeah, Not of This Earth comes out on Toshiba in Japan. The album cover's lame. It's like, well, I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it. And then they started playing shows. One of which was recorded and would later be released as Molten Lager in 1999. Sorry, I didn't have an aneurysm. I was just lighting a cigarette. I think that came out through Cleopatra. Cleopatra also released a really weird EP, like around 97, for the song Testify. And it was like this really weird remix thing, but that's, you know, got a little bit ahead. The album itself came out in Japan, and then at some point Rat decided that he was going to do a worldwide release on it. And for that, he changed the name of it to It's Alright, what is it? It's Alright Jack and the Beanstalk? Something like that? Is that what it's called? It's Alright, yeah, It's Alright Jack and the Beanstalk. Put a new cover on it, released it. And I guess Dave didn't get paid for it. He was really salty about it. I remember seeing him on, I didn't see him at the time. This is I watched this after the fact. It's on YouTube, but they did a TV show in promotion of the album. The album still wasn't out at this point, but when they did Neat, and Dave wore he dressed up like the Invisible Man, so you couldn't see his face. It was really weird. So I think even then there was problems. But so then it gets the more worldwide release with the new title, a new cover. The cover was much better. But I guess the whole time Dave was kind of against this whole thing. It was sold to him as something else than it ended up being. I guess he still was owed some money on it. The album's not great. It's kind of, like I said, one year out the other. A lot of songs sound the same. There's some cool things on it, but it's just not a Damned album. It's a bunch of songs written by this guy, you know, and they have the logo on it, and Dave sings on it. Rat plays drums, so there you go. The live album that came out from this in '99, Molten Lager, it's a good recording. It sounds like it's off the soundboard. I think that's exactly what it is, right off the soundboard. And the set list is mainly stuff from the Not of This Earth album, with a few older songs thrown in, like the old sort of punk standards. But the funny thing about it is it's like was recorded at like a private party or something, or like a country club or something, because they're joking through the whole thing in between songs about kind of how lame it is there. And they break into I Walk the Line from Johnny Cash, and You've Lost That Love and Feeling from Righteous Brothers. And they keep alluding to like the fact that it's you know, they talk about hors d'oeuvres and stuff, and like it's like a private party or private function. It's something like that. It's really bizarre. They play really well. I love Chris Dollimore on Neat Neat Neat. It sounds great. Speaking of Neat Neat Neat, the song they played on that TV show where Dave was dressed like the Invisible Man was Smash It Up. And because I just thought of how good Chris Dollimore is on that. I mean, if there was a real Damned put together, to be the Damned with Chris Dollimore, that would have been great, you know. And even Moose is fine. And Alan Lee Shaw, he's fine too. I guess at one point, he was taken out of the band, I guess. Because they wanted to make it a 4-piece toward the end of this permutation of the group being together. And I guess he was a little salty about that, but, you know, whatever. There's not much you can do, I guess. Because the Damned is the money-making aspect of that whole project, the name. And so before, this whole thing kind of imploded before the album even came out in '96. And it was done. And I think that's what soured stuff between Dave and Rat for a long time. Rat had a similar thing going on with Captain, like a similar money/business thing. He also had some kind of thing with Paul Gray too, when Paul Gray was in the band, and was sort of the reason why Paul left. And it had to do with the music business. What it was him and his dad were managing them at the time. Rat and his father was managing the band, and Paul Gray got them a record deal when they needed a new label deal. And Rat was, I guess, mad about this because he didn't do it. It's retarded, but I don't know about that guy. He seems kind of fucked up, you know. He seems kind of fucked up, you know. He's a great drummer, one of the best from that whole era. You know, he's fucking awesome. He's like like a lot of the heavy metal hard rock guys would always talk about, you know, different drummers like, oh, he's like the new Keith Moon. No, Rat was the new Keith Moon. He had that same style, that sort of wind up Tasmanian devil, let him go. You know what I mean? He had that going on, and it's too bad that whole thing happened with them. But as far as an album, it's, you know, it's not really a Damned album. In fact, it's not even included in some of their discographies. I don't think it's listed on the Damned official site. It's not horrible. It's just not great. It doesn't sound anything like the Damned. Dave sounds good on it, of course, because he always does. But it sounds like he's just singing over. Could be possibly like a solo album or something. It's just different. The music in it was described as one reviewer as boogie rock. I guess more of an English term. I mean, I've heard the term before, of course, but it usually referred to, in America, it referred to things like Slow Ride or something, or by Bog Hat, like a sort of bar band. And maybe it means the same thing there, but yeah, it's not looked upon with any sort of reverence, and that, you know, accordingly. Now the live album, the Molten Lager album, is good for what it is, but again, it's like, it's a lot of songs from the Not of This Earth album. So yeah, well, that's the story about that whole situation. Hey Johnny, what's up, man? And that's it for Not of This Earth. Don't blame the teacher, blame the school.